So here I'm looking at a home page in OnePlan, and depending on the role you're given, you may see different things or the extent of different data in here. But the idea is to give that user, an individual user, a hub to get to the things that they need to get to. For example, access to the plans that they're involved in without having to navigate through the entire portfolio and be able to get quick access into the different aspects of those plans that they need to get into. Alerts or insights into things that require their attention or things they may need to address. Recent conversations on tasks or resources or plans themselves, and be able to give them ready access into those threads should you want to go into more detail and see the more recent things that involve you that are, need your attention. And then things that might be due soon, the things that you might need to provide status on, etc. Those are things that are all available to you. Now, we talked about this all starting with strategy. So let me start up front with that. If we are going to have an optimized portfolio that's aligned with strategy, we need to have a strategy in the first place. And OnePlan gives you the ability to define that strategy. And here we have it modeled in an objectives and key results model, or OKR model. And as we look through the objectives and the key results, you can see here that we have objectives, we have key results associated with them, which are the tangible measures of progress of saying, are we achieving progress towards that, or have we achieved that objective as we go on through? And some of them can be IT related, like improving IT infrastructure, right, etc. And the idea there is those types of things can be overall strategies of which we have projects and initiatives that support them. So for example, if I went into the objective of increase our project success rate and drill into it, you can define the attributes and the fields of data you'd like to capture around this. We talk about maybe prioritization, even prior to prioritizing the strategy, have a weighted scored prioritization mechanism for the strategy itself. Maybe even timelines of when we want to get those things done, what it's going to cost, what benefits and return on investment we're going to have, and even an approval strategy on how we're doing across all that. And notice that we have associated items here. We have associated key results that are available to us. But where this comes in is this is not a standalone execution plan. This is now going to be tied, and we're going to show you as part of this demonstration how it's related to the rest of the solution, meaning that there's no other strategies here dependency-wise that we're dependent on. But this strategy does have a lot of different facets that are associated or related to what we're trying to do. To increase this project success rate, we have 3 tangible key results that we're trying to achieve. There are 4 projects and or epics that are in our portfolio that are being executed on to support the achievement of those. And then in alignment with those, there are now products and applications and business capabilities, for example, and value streams that these are associated with. And we can see that some of them are actually at risk, for example. And there may be a product or an application that I may want to go look at and understand where it's at and why it might be yellow or why it might be at risk and how it might be impacting what we're going to be doing within achieving this particular strategy. And this type of view is available to us throughout the entire tool set. If I drill into the key result here, for example, I can not only pop that out, but I can go in here and drill into, implement a governance framework. And I can just drill through to that item from here and live and see that I do actually have a dependency that is waiting on me for this particular key result, but also look at this from the context of this key result and see the projects and epics and the applications and other things that may be related to that specific key result as well. And if I look at the details around this, you can see that you can define in these forms, which are drag and drop buildable, is that you could have different sections with the way you categorize these things, the way you choose what the metrics is. In this case, we basically have a target number and a percentage of that we're looking at getting, or it could be dollars, it could be other kinds of metrics. And the idea is that then this is associated with the plans and or the enterprise architecture items that are germane to this particular key result. So once again, this strategy sets the course. Now, before they become projects, you may have an intake. You may have ideas or requests that come in. And I'll just go in here and look at a plain list right now of those requests and come in here and take a look at the fact that we may have a portal where anybody in your organization, wherever you allow to, may come in here and create an idea. And if they create an idea, they may put a business case together. There may be different aspects of this. You may have people, vote on these ideas, et cetera, as you go through here, and be able to look at, crowdsourcing and overall sentiment around this, as well as that. And as you go in here, you can go into a particular thing. I'll go into website redesign here. And as I look at it, you can capture the things you want. You can have an overall business case. Think of this as your funnel into your portfolio without clogging up your portfolio with a bunch of things that you may not do. Here I have a narratives for business case. I have the characterizations or the categorizations of the project. I have prioritization scoring mechanisms. One is more business driver related, like with strategic alignment, risk reduction, et cetera, right? That calculates a prioritization score. Or maybe if you have a more agile methodology or lean, you may be using a weighted shortest job first and having those metrics in here, in there. And then you can see here that there's a key result that this idea is aligned with. So it may factor into our decision on whether or not we would do that. And once again, I could call up the visualizer at any given point in time here to basically show me, how this is potentially associated or impacted with other things as we've defined it. Now, the nice thing here is that you can come in to these ideas, and at any given point in time through workflow or through somebody with permissions having the right permissions to do that, we can actually convert or reorganize these and promote these ideas into projects or epics or whatever your plan types are that we'll talk about here in a minute. But the idea is that you can have this continuum without having to recreate things and just move this through a process to where these ideas can then be moved into a portfolio. And this active portfolio would be where you would actually manage your initiatives and your projects. So here, for example, very IT related, a data analytics transformation. And then we have our enterprise data platform program within that. Now, how is that there? Well, we can define what we call a plan type hierarchy in different plan types. And here, one example, and this doesn't have to be the way you model it. We have a portfolio level. We can have one or more portfolios. Those portfolios can have programs within them. And then we have the detailed projects and epics within them that we could manage within them. And so within here, I can see a bunch of projects and epics that are within this enterprise data platform underneath this data analytics transformation portfolio. And you can determine different portfolios and who has access to what with a full security model to determine different branches of that portfolio if you want to go broadly across an organization. Also notice that there's icons here that say that we can that we are tied to or connected to other technologies outside of OnePlan. Here we're connected to a team site for content and collaboration. This one's connected to Microsoft Planner for some detailed tasks, or Azure DevOps in this one, Smartsheet in this one, Jira in this one, Microsoft Project for the web here, and Microsoft Project Desktop. Some of the more common ones that we deal with. But the ones that don't have a planning or project scheduling tool associated with it, that may be being managed right here within OnePlan. And the idea is that we can do that full execution within here. What's nice about this, if I drill into a particular plan, you can actually capture the details around this full project plan. And here I've got the business case captured that came over from the actual request itself. I got the categorization, I got your project life cycle, and I've got the different metrics and KPIs that you may want. Now, this is completely configurable based on the way you want to look at the world. Now, the work planning, this is in here so that you can actually come in and you could actually, look at, a waterfall plan in this particular case. You could look at it, with or without the Gantt chart representation that people are expecting to look at within here. We could also look at this from a board perspective and look at it from a more of a Kanban board. But we also have different work types, just like we have plan types, such that if you were doing an agile plan, we can have a backlog work type where we are doing more agile backlogs and potentially putting in sprints, etc. And we can either build them right here in OnePlan, or we could connect them to other agile tools and bring that data in from those other agile tools to roll up into the portfolio so we get that single pane of glass that I was talking about earlier on. Okay, and then individual resource plans can be built in here such that we can build up the capacity either from the top down, from more of an FTE or higher level perspective, or from a roll up from the resources that are assigned to your tasks. And the same thing holds true with your financials. That you could have your detailed cost categories in here and manage your financials here as you see fit. Now, back in these portfolios, we can leverage different views. I can have different, list views here where I might have ones that are more financial oriented, maybe ones that are more effort oriented, maybe ones that are more schedule oriented. And I could also look at this in a variety of ways. I'm showing this by a primary plan type hierarchy that I talked about with the portfolios and the programs. But if you have any types of metadata that you want to add into the system, I could sit here and say, all right, this is not the way the primary hierarchy is structured, but let me see this by business unit. And here I can basically go in and say, all right, what are my application business unit projects look like? And I can group or filter or summarize by that. I can look at them by, say, category. And now I can go in here, what are my business transformation projects? And I can look at them flexibly in any way I'd like. So once again, a lot of flexibility there. And you can also work with these in terms of agile boards so that you can have the cards and you can do the columns and the swim lanes by any data element that we have available to us in OnePlan. And you can even do swim lanes the same way. So for example, here I can look at the proposed and active projects, and in this board view, if I want to look at it, say by, once again, by business unit, I can see here's the things that I'm doing that are proposed and active within the applications area. And I can see some are turning yellow or at risk, some are green and on track. And from here, I can actually go in and do that same quick edit or drill through on here to get to the projects and get to the data that I want to regarding any of those things and get a quick assessment of the data that's available to me in there. And we also have roadmap views. So those of you that want to provide roadmaps and when things are going to get delivered, we can actually do those things and group the swim lanes by whatever it is that you'd like. In this case, it's by business unit again. But once again, let me just take the category one and I can basically say, here's my business transformation roadmap, here's my compliance roadmap, et cetera. And here's some key milestones like program increments or quarters or different release dates that you might want to track to that align with those along the way, okay? As you go through this, you can use Sophia either in the portfolio itself or let me go back to the ideas area. And let's just say we're contemplating what we would like to do in here. And then let me say I want to go open up the my prioritization view that has my scoring in it and such, right? And look at that from that perspective. And when I do so, I'm going to call up Sophia and maybe have her do some analysis for me. So down here in the lower right, I go to Sophia, and they give you some examples in here of things that you might ask it. But I'm going to come in here and I'm going to ask her, based on priority and ROI, what 3 projects should we approve first and why? And let Sophia kind of give me an idea what her take is on this based upon the different data points that we have in here. And it might help me get some insights that I might not have gotten on the surface from my own analysis. So Sophia's thinking for a second, taking in what it knows from OpenAI, Azure OpenAI, and taking in the data it knows about OnePlan, and then the specific data that we're looking at here in this ideas area. And it says, based on priority and ROI, it's suggesting that we do the cybersecurity audit priority because it's high. The budget and benefits look good. And additionally, it addresses a critical need to actively protect the organization from cyber risk. So there's a subjective piece to that, not just to the thing of what it knows about that type of project. And voice assistant integration give me the same type of rationale. Now in the portfolio, if I went in and said, just want to look at the active portfolio, not just the ideas area, I could ask it a question that might be more germane to that. So for example, if I, look at the entire portfolio here and I say to Sophia, which 3 projects are at highest risk of failure and why? And have it give me some analysis there. And it'll take a look at what's there, what the KPIs and the data and the metrics are saying to us, and give me some assessment on that. So it tells me that it is off track. It's facing significant challenge in meeting deadlines and staying within budget, so high risk of failure. The Epic and the IT business unit is on hold in this concept development, and it's already on hold, and it has issues with finances and its schedule. Brand management also has its issues, and it's giving me its analysis of that. So once again, something in the portfolio, but once again, you could ask it anything you like related to the status, the risk, the et cetera, and I'll show you some other static examples of that as we go on through this. Now, there's a resource plan in here that would actually allow me to take that individual project resource plan that I showed you on a specific project, and then be able to come in here and be able to look at this by, say, different resources and roles, right? And as I come through here and I can take a look at different, aspects in here, and I can go in and, add a variety of different organizations in here as I want to, as I can categorize my different parts of the business. And as I go in here and I want to expand this view, I can go in here and I can see that I have a number of developers in here. This is all rolling up from the rest of the projects. In this particular case, I'm looking at the roles and I can see, I'm looking at it in terms of hours, but let me just look at it in a full-time equivalence perspective. And I can see here that I'm over allocated in the developer ranks overall, because it starts here in March where I have a capacity of 5 and I'm now 6+ needed. In April, I have 5 and I'm 8+ required. I have an overage of 3.5. I also still have individuals who are individually over allocated, which if I had this visibility, I probably wouldn't have them this degree of over allocated in the first place before I gave them other things. But I also still have generic developer hours or effort that is basically allocated that we haven't put names to yet. So on top of that, we still haven't figured out who's going to do some of those things. Now, if I came into the developer rank here and I said, I was going to go into the customer experience one and say, I want to find a resource that's available for that, I could come in here and say, let me find some resources by criteria or by best match. And I can come in here and determine, well, the customer experience where I need the time, it looks like the only one who has availability in that time is Toby Stevens. I could potentially take Toby and say, let me replace that resource above with Toby and resolve that issue right there as I go through, as I try to reconcile these things across. Once again, a lot of this is available to us at any given point in time. Now, if I go into the overall resource summary, this one's going to give me a list of all my resources as I go through there, and it's also going to let me see all of the things that these people are assigned to. If I expand this out, I could see for each resource how many different things each of these people are working on as I go through. So that gives me a good visibility into that. But Sophia could come in here and say, I could say, oh, what resources do I need to hire? And if I put that question to Sophia, hopefully she'll give me some analysis on where my bottlenecks and or shortcomings are. Because obviously we do have them in this demo model. So it's telling me the areas, and it looks like I have needs across the board. So as it looks there and it gives me the answers on this, it says the specific numbers will be based on some further assessment. But let me just ask it for the heck of it. I'm going to say, how many of each resource do I need? So I can ask it a follow-on question to the initial question, and it'll answer it in that context. And hopefully it'll give me some idea of the degree to which I'm short of people. Because there may be just some temporary bottlenecks as opposed to needs for a longer term hire or to contract something out. So it says it needs more information on the number of resources to evaluate the current workload. And so it's giving me some guidance on the things that I should look at here. And And ultimately, if possible, will be based upon the resource plan that we have in place. Now, another piece that we have in here is the enterprise architecture area. And as I mentioned, it's not a full enterprise architecture repository or solution, but the elements that you want to track in here can be tracked. And if you do have an enterprise architecture solution in place, we can use our OneConnect solution to basically bring that data into here and leverage what you have in your EA solution. But notice, in addition to a project portfolio, I've got multiple portfolios listed here. I've got a product portfolio, a business capabilities portfolio, an applications portfolio, a portfolio of value streams, and even an organizational portfolio that we have in here. So the idea here is, as I go in, and we talked about plan types, if I was looking at products, right, you could have a whole different details page that maybe has a product vision canvas in here with all the aspects of that. You could have the life cycle. You can have plans, work plans in here for releases, et cetera, and maybe the financials for total cost of ownership as we go through all of this. But the idea is that this portfolio item and this product can then be leveraged with associations all throughout the organization, so we can associate them with strategies and projects and other enterprise architecture elements as we go through this. So the key here is that we can have this. Let's just say from this product perspective, I decided I wanted to use that visualize capability that we showed earlier on, but now I'm doing it from a product-centric view. And I can see that this product Bachmanity has actually dependency on two other products, both predecessor and successor. But the runway for this shows that it is key or associated with supporting 4 different key results and 4 different strategies ultimately, and that it's aligned with 2 different projects and the business capabilities that have to be addressed in order for this to happen as well. So the idea is we're getting visuals in there from the perspective or the view of the product as opposed to the strategy like we did before. Once again, very flexible and be able to drill into any one of these at any given point in time. Now, the other key piece that I'll finish with is the modeler. And this really gives us the ability to do what-if analysis. And you can create new models at any given point in time, and you can do different models for different parts of the organization, and you can actually come in and establish a model. You could establish a population of projects or potential projects that you'd like to include in the model. And here we'd like to consider 40 different elements, a combination of both active and proposed and on-hold projects, for example, that we have in here. And then to do those, I could take a look at this at any given point in time. I could look at my financial commitments that would be required to do this, you know, across different periods of time. I can look at the resource requirements that are needed across these periods of time. And I can see to do all of those, I have significant over allocations in order to make that happen. And I can do different scenarios where I can say, let's say I want to go through a scenario where I want to evaluate selecting and deselecting projects or moving project timelines around, et cetera, such that to get within a $10 million budget, and let me go back to the financial side of this, I might have a certain selection of projects and or timing of those projects that would help me come into within that $10 million budget, which this does. But you can see I'm only doing 17 of those projects, and a number of them are then are now out of that scenario that we can't do. But I would also say by the time I got in the financial budgets, I can see that, you know, I also probably have a more realistic resource plan where I only have slight overages in here and I might be able to achieve this. Now we could run this with say another $15 million scenario, et cetera, and then we can compare the different analyses as we go through. So for example, in this particular case, I could see that the budget and the committed effort with resources and the targeted benefits here, I can see that if I got an additional $5 million, I could do 10 more projects, but I could also get another $20 million worth of benefit for another $5 million of investment. It might be worth my while to go pursue that. So once again, we have that type of information at our fingertips. We have the traditional bubble charting that you're used to seeing in portfolio management that I can look at. In this case, I'm looking at prioritization via benefits and the size of the projects by the bubbles. And I can even show which projects we didn't select in the gray so we can see that we overlook something that needs to be in there. And once again, that visualizer comes back into play here in a different perspective where in this what if analysis, I can see this is what I selected. here's the unselected predecessors and successors. Do I need to pick something and include it because of its dependency? Or should I also reconsider maybe in my analysis because here's the way it's aligned in a runway with strategies, key results, different projects and products. So once again, all can factor into my decisions. So ultimately, this all comes back and ties together very nicely and allows you to do these complex strategic portfolio management exercises and disciplines that you need to pursue.